Well, Donald Trump is preparing to turn himself into authorities to face criminal charges in New York today. Last week, a grand jury indicted the former president over his alleged involvement in a hush money payment made to adult film star Stormy Daniels during his 2016 campaign. Robert Costa is outside the Manhattan courthouse with all the information we need to know. Robert, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. Former President Trump will be here at this courthouse later today. A judge ruled overnight that no video will be permitted in the courtroom, but some still photography will be allowed. That comes after Trump's lawyers argued that photos and video could create a, quote, circus-like atmosphere.
Former President Donald Trump emerged from his Mar-a-Lago estate Monday to the cheers of supporters lining the streets as he began his journey to face an expected arraignment today.
We just want to keep his morale up. He's a strong man, strongest man I've known, and he's taken a lot of heat.
Trump boarded his private plane in West Palm Beach, Florida, bound for an unprecedented New York homecoming. He touched down at LaGuardia Airport and went straight to Trump Tower, where security has been on high alert amid this historic moment. A former president being criminally indicted, days after he called on his supporters to protest. President Biden weighed in for the first time Monday.
No, I have faith in the New York Police Department.
Yes. Around midday today, Trump is set to leave Trump Tower and head to the criminal court in Lower Manhattan to surrender. Trump would be fingerprinted. Then he's set to be arraigned at 2:15 p.m. The indictment remains sealed, but sources say Trump will likely be charged with falsifying business records in the first degree, which is a felony. This is in connection to the money allegedly used to silence porn star Stormy Daniels during his 2016 presidential run.
Unless I've completely misread the universe, you should not expect a guilty plea.
Attorney Jim Trusty represents Trump in two separate federal cases. He says he expects the Trump team to push to have the case dismissed.
I think that a lot of people, a lot of legal scholars and folks like myself are in agreement that there could be some very significant motions filed in short order. I mean, within days or weeks, not weeks or months.
Trump bolstered his legal team Monday by bringing on veteran criminal defense lawyer Todd Blanche. After Tuesday's court proceedings, Trump is expected to return to Florida, where he is set to deliver remarks in a ballroom event at Mar-a-Lago this evening.
District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who has been relentlessly criticized by Trump, also plans to speak out today, holding a news conference after the arraignment. Anne-Marie?
So listen, Robert, we have a few more details now about how this is going to happen, how the president is going to sort of surrender. Both sides would have been negotiating this. He's not exactly being treated like everyone because he can't be. Just I'm curious about like some insight into the negotiations. What would Trump and his attorneys be asking for, and what would authorities be looking for as he enters the courthouse?
Based on our reporting, Anne-Marie, the negotiations have been quite strained behind the scenes between the Trump side and the district attorney's office. There is not a warm relationship there, to say the least. The negotiations here are really being adjudicated by the judge in the case, who is making the decisions about how a lot of this process will play out in terms of photography versus video, who will be allowed in the hallways, who will not, how will the arrangements go in terms of arriving at the courtroom, then ultimately having that open arraignment in court. There's a balance in the judge's view, if you look at his ruling, in trying to have public information available to people while also trying to not have the atmosphere be chaotic or tense in an unusual or unnatural way.
So we're talking about an arraignment now, but if we've, ever seen sort of Trump lawyers in action, we know that a lot of what happens initially is attempts to delay. I mean, could we be looking at an actual trial, should it go forward, at an actual trial in the height of election season?
I think you should get ready for a wait, Anne-Marie, and so should all of us, because this is a process that is just beginning. If you think about baseball being 9 innings, this is the first inning of a long legal process. The indictment begins that pre-trial phase. You have the indictment, you have the arraignment, but now it's going to become a legal battle over what lawyers call motions, which is essentially an effort by different sides to try to set the terms of a possible trial. The first thing the Trump lawyers tell us they are going to do is motion for this entire case to be dismissed. And if they don't get that, maybe the venue will be changed, arguing that this isn't a place that's a fair setting for former President Trump. So there will be a lot of skirmishing in open court ahead of any possible trial. But if it gets to a trial, that would be a historic moment to see a former president on trial.
And then there is the politics of all of this. Certainly, Donald Trump has some vocal supporters, Marjorie Taylor Greene being one of them. She's expected to be there, part of a protest or a demonstration. You've pointed out that there are a number of high-profile senators that have not commented at all, Republican senators. Do you know if there's any sort of internal pressure within the Republican Party to either say something to support Donald Trump or nothing at all, or what the messaging is?
There is not a lot of love for former President Trump at the upper ranks of the Republican Party. He does have support from the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, a longtime ally, but Senate Republican leader, the minority leader, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, is not a fan of former President Trump. And McConnell's position is certainly shared, at least privately, by many of his colleagues in the Senate Republican Conference. And that dynamic doesn't give Trump necessarily a major boost, but Trump's campaign believes he has grassroots support. He is raising millions of dollars, they claim, since he was indicted. And because of that, they believe that could fuel him toward the Republican presidential nomination.
Robert, Costa, thank you very much.